आजकल देश में एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण डिबेट चल रही है। सब लोग इस विषय में अपने अपने विचार रख रहे हैं और लोकतंत्र में ये मंथन बहुत आवश्यक है। हर कोई अपने विचार व्यक्त करे, जरूरी है। और डिबेट क्या है? वन नेशन, वन इलेक्शन।
India, the land of a billion voices, where 969 million registered voters cast their votes in the general elections, making it the world's largest democratic exercise. State assemblies follow their own clocks in terms of elections for their 5-year term. Now there is talk of changing the current rhythm and weaving staggered elections into a fixed 5-year cycle. My name is Alice Paragot. I'm an India qualified lawyer, and the aim of this video and this channel is to understand the facts and read the law so that we can arrive at our own conclusions. Let's get into it. Simultaneous elections are not new to India. The nation began its first electoral cycle after independence in 1951, with the Lok Sabha and all state assemblies going to the polls together. This synchronized rhythm continued through the first 3 general elections. It was disrupted during the term of the 4th Lok Sabha, and we've had staggered elections ever since. Let's take a look at the terms of the current state assemblies and their electoral cycle as provided on the Election Commission's website. For Andhra Pradesh, it's from June 2024 to June 2029, Bihar, November 2020 to November 2025, Haryana, October 2024 to October 2029, so on and so forth. You can see that different states have their own clocks for state elections. Critics argue that this would impact India's federal structure.
Sir, on behalf of the Nationalist Congress Party SP, I oppose the 129th Constitution Amendment Bill. Clearly, most of my colleagues have made the 3 most important points: that this is completely against federalism and the Constitution of India. The centre and the states have their own tenures and terms. So I think to mix the two is not fair, because the Article 356, because just last week, sir, we debated Article 356, and in the case of S.R. Bommai versus the Constitution of India, dissolving of assemblies was something which both sides have objected, and both sides have done it. So if we object to this, why are we giving this authority to the Election Commission to dissolve assemblies who are elected for 5 years? So I think to break these tenures is completely objectionable, and India is a union of states. Central government cannot. Cooperative federalism is something which we are so proud of. So I request the Honorable, the Government of India, either to withdraw the bill or send it to a joint parliamentary committee so we have a detailed discussion, and we'll be happy to support as long as it comes to a joint parliamentary committee.
We're now going to look at the legal framework. First, we're going to see what it means to be a federation, and we're also going to look at India's federal structure. Thereafter, we're going to look at the provisions of the Constitution. Then we're going to look at the report submitted by the high-level committee constituted to study simultaneous elections. And thereafter, we're going to look at the 129th Amendment Bill. India's federal structure is one of the most distinctive in the world. It was designed to hold together a country of extraordinary diversity at a time when it had just achieved its nascent freedom. The distribution of legislative powers is discussed in Part 11 of the Constitution, and the 7th schedule of the Constitution also provides 3 lists. The Union list has subjects that the Parliament can frame laws on. The second list is the state list, which has subjects that the state can form laws on, and the concurrent list has a variety of subjects that either the union or the state can form laws on, except in a case of conflict, the union would prevail. Further, Article 248 grants res jure powers to the center, which is different from classic federations where these powers would have been held by states. Article 3 of the Constitution also provides the Parliament the power to reorganize states, so it can effectively alter boundaries of states. Article 371A protects Naga customary law and land ownership. Article 371G safeguards Mizo-religious and social practices, and Article 371F provides safeguards for Sikkim's integration into India. So in a classic federation, the center and the states have their own powers and functions, and they function essentially in their own independent spheres. Whereas in India, as we've seen from all the provisions that we just discussed, there is a tilt towards the center, and so we are what you call asymmetric in our federal structure. By combining a strong center with state-specific autonomy, the Constitution ensures that India remains a strong union of states and a cohesive nation. This is why India's federalism is often referred to as asymmetric or quasi-federal, and leaders also call it cooperative federalism. So this is the high-level committee report on simultaneous elections in India, and this was submitted on March of 2024. The committee was chaired by our former President Shri Ramnath Kovind and had a variety of distinguished members. So for anybody that's interested into the rationale that the committee went into, this is quite an exhaustive report. And due to paucity of time, we can't get into every single aspect. But what I would like to get into is the terms of reference, which is available on page 47. So this is essentially the specific aspects that the committee has looked into. And ultimately, in the final section, in its recommendations and conclusions, it has provided what it has found while looking into these aspects. So due to paucity of time, we can't get into everything, but let's look into the final recommendations that the committee has made. Now, under point A, the committee recommends that in the first step, elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies be held. In the second step, elections to municipalities and panchayats be held within 100 days of elections to the Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies. Under subpoint 3, the concept of an appointed date is also discussed, which we'll get into when we discuss the bill. And under subpoint B, examine and recommend if the amendments to the Constitution would require ratification by states. Now, this is significant because the committee recommends that one nation, one election does not have to be ratified by states. This means that all that it needs to pass is a parliamentary majority. And the only time state ratification would be required would be in case of elections to municipalities and panchayats. Secondly, point B also discusses in one of its subpoints the introduction of a unified electoral roll. Similarly, the committee has provided its findings for the other terms of reference, and I would encourage you to go over them. Now let's look at the Constitution 129th Amendment Bill. Let's first look at the Statement of Objects and Reasons. The Statement of Objects and Reasons argues that elections are expensive, time-consuming, and that frequent polls bring repeated imposition of the Model Code of Conduct, halting developmental work and disrupting governance. This bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha on December 17, 2024, and they have now been referred to a joint parliamentary committee chaired by Mr. P.P. Chaudhary.
For permission, I beg to move for leave to introduce the Constitution 129th Amendment Bill 2024 further to amend the Constitution of India. ये आइटम नंबर 18 में है और आइटम नंबर 19 में जैसे आपने कहा, Honorable Speaker Sir, with your permission, I wish to move for leave to introduce the Union Territories Laws Amendment Bill 2024 further to amend the Government of Union Territories Act 1963, the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Act 1991, and the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019. ये मैं आपकी अनुमति से आपसे लीव मांग रहा हूँ.
The bill authorizes the Election Commission to hold simultaneous elections for the Lok Sabha and all state legislative assemblies. The Union Territories Laws Amendment Bill applies this arrangement to the Union Territories. The bill recommends introduction of a new Article 82A, that the President can issue a notification on the date of the first sitting of the Lok Sabha after a general election, All state assemblies formed after this date will end their term when the Lok Sabha completes that 5-year term. Let's look at Article 82A(5). It gives the ECI the authority to recommend postponing a state assembly election. So if in the ECI's opinion, elections to a state assembly cannot be held at the same time as general elections to the Lok Sabha, it can recommend to the President that the election be conducted at a later date. Acting on this recommendation, the President can formally order deferral. But the bill goes even further. Under Article 82A(6), if the state election is deferred, the full term of that assembly will still end on the same date that the Lok Sabha's term ends for that simultaneous election cycle. In other words, no matter when the election is eventually held, the assembly's term will be cut short to match the national election schedule. However, these changes could lead to legislators serving very short terms, sometimes less than a year. The bill does not explain on what grounds the ECI can decide that elections cannot be held. It provides no list of specific or exceptional circumstances. There's also another issue. There's no time limit on how long an election can be deferred. If a state assembly's 5-year term expires and its election is postponed, the bill doesn't say how quickly the election must be held. The proposed One Nation, One Election seeks to reshape India's electoral landscape by synchronizing Lok Sabha and state assembly elections. Supporters see it as a way to reduce administrative strain and also policy paralysis caused due to staggered elections. However, critics warn that it could lead to shortened legislative terms and also of weakening state autonomy, in addition to the fact that the bill in its current form provides sweeping powers to the ECI. That's all for this week's video on Without Prejudice. Please leave your feedback in the comments below, and I hope you found this video to be of some value. Thank you.